Hello everyone. So this is the part 2 of our lesson 2 and we will discuss about machinery. Now, what are the costs to be chargeable to the machinery account? The cost of machinery when purchased are: first, we have the purchase price. Then, freight, handling, storage, and other costs related to the acquisition. We have insurance while in transit. Installation costs including site preparation and assembling. Cost of testing and trial run and other costs necessary in preparing the machinery for its intended use. Initial estimate of cost of dismantling and removing the machinery and restoring the site on which it is located and for which the entity has a present obligation. Fee paid to consultants for advice in the acquisition of the machinery, cost of safety rail and platform surrounding machine, and cost of water device to keep machine cool. Now, class, take note of the letter F, initial estimate of cost of dismantling, or in other words, that is the cost of removing the machinery and restoring the site on which it is located and for which the entity has a present obligation. Take note that not all the initial estimate of the cost of removing the machinery is being added to the cost of machinery. That is only true if the entity has a present obligation. Otherwise, it will not be added to the cost of machinery. Now, let us try to solve machinery questions and let us start with the illustration one. For illustration 1, Negros Company acquired a new machinery. Question: what amount should be capitalized as cost of machinery? So what are we going to consider? This one is of course the ones that are mentioned above, or those that are directly attributable cost of the machinery aside from its purchase price. Now first we have the invoice price of the machinery. So of course this is the purchase price, and so we have to include it for an amount of 1,400,000. Next, cash discount available but not taken on purchase. Now take note class that even though the cash discount was not availed, we must always deduct the cash discount. Next, freight paid on the machinery. Of course, this is a directly attributable cost that is necessary in bringing the machinery to its present location, so we have to remove it. Next, cost of removing the old machinery. Now take note class that the cost of removing the old machinery is treated already as an outright expense. Why? Because it is related to the old machinery and not to the new machinery. Next, installation cost of the new machinery. So it is related to the new machinery, and so therefore we have to add 50,000 pesos. Next, testing cost before the machinery was put into regular operation, including 10,000 in wages of the regular machinery operator. Now, the testing or the trial run of the machinery is added to the cost of machinery because it is necessary in preparing the machinery or in bringing the machinery to its present condition. Without the trial run, we cannot know how to effectively use the machinery, and so therefore the testing cost or the trial run of 30,000 pesos must be included. And the last one, estimated cost of manufacturing similar machinery including overhead. So take note that this one is only an estimate. If ever, instead of purchasing the machine, that is if ever we constructed the machine. Now, if you're gonna see that the estimated cost of manufacturing the machinery versus the invoice price, the estimated cost is 1,300,000. And so therefore, we have a savings on construction amounting to 100,000. But take note of this class that any savings on construction will not be recognized, okay, or nor it will be added to the cost of machinery. Savings on construction is only used for decision-making purposes and not to be added or deducted to the cost of the machinery. Now, how much is our total cost of the machinery? So, we are gonna add, that is 1,500,000. Now, let's proceed to illustration 2. Wisdom Company installed a new equipment at the production facility and incurred the following costs. Question: what total amount should be capitalized as cost of the equipment? Now let's start with cost of equipment per supplier's invoice. So this is the invoice price. We have cost of equipment amounting to 2,500,000. Initial delivery and handling cost amounting to 200,000. Next, cost of site preparation. So of course, you are to prepare for the site of the machinery, and since it is directly attributable to the machinery, and so therefore we have to add the cost of site preparation. Next, consultants used for advice on the acquisition of equipment. Of course, this is included. 700,000. And next, interest charges paid to supplier for deferred credit. Now, take note that the interest charge is not capitalized. Why? Because the equipment is ready for the intended use when acquired. Okay? So, therefore, the interest is not necessary. Okay? For the machine or to bring the machine to its present location or condition. The moment that we purchase the machine, whether there is interest or whether we purchase it in cash or through credit, okay, the machine can still be used. And so therefore, the interest is not necessary. Next, estimated dismantling cost to be incurred as required by contract. Now, as what I've said, if the estimated dismantling or removing cost has or is a present obligation of the entity, then that will be included. Now, in that case, since it is required by contract, then that only means that there is already a present obligation to have it removed when or to have it removed in the future. Okay? So, we have estimated dismantling cost of 300,000 pesos. And lastly, operating losses before commercial production. So take note that this one, operating losses, are part of the losses or expenses and not to be hidden or buried in the cost of the equipment. Now to compute the total cost of the equipment, so we have 25 plus 200 plus 600 plus 7 plus 300, and then we have 4,300,000 pesos. Okay? Now, let's proceed to illustration 3. For illustration 3, the question is, what total amount should be capitalized as cost of the machine? Newcom Company uses many kinds of machines in operations. The entity acquires some machines from others and constructs. The entity acquires some machines from others and constructs some machines itself. The following information pertains to machine constructed by the entity. Okay, so this is the cost of the machine when constructed. So if you notice, I didn't put any lists, okay, that I have presented to you earlier about the machines that that is to be constructed. But take note that just like the building that is also to be constructed, more or less it is just the same with the machine. So it will include the direct materials, direct labor, and of course the factory overhead and such other directly attributable cost that is to be attributed to the machine. Okay, so what is the cost of the machine that is to be capitalized? Now, first, we have the cost of material to construct. Of course, this is a material, and so we have to add 700,000. Next, of course, the labor cost is also to be added. Then we have the allocated overhead cost. That is 220,000. And then we have allocated interest cost of financing machine. Okay, allocated interest cost that is 100,000. Now, as of this time, why did we included the interest? Unlike in illustration 2, we did not include any interest. Now, take note class, as what I have said, that this interest charge is not capitalized because the equipment is ready for the intended use when acquired. Okay? While, unlike in illustration 3, we are still to construct the machine. It is not yet ready to use when acquired, and so therefore, it is necessary and we have to add the 100,000 pesos. Okay? Now next, cost of installation, of course, that is included because it is used to install the machine, 120,000. Then we have insurance for 1 year. So class, take note that the insurance for the year is not to be added as cost of the machine but rather to be expense outright as an insurance expense. Okay? So, the insurance again for this year is not to be added. Then we have profit saved by self-construction. Now again, saving on construction is ignored. And lastly, we have safety and inspection costs prior to use. So of course, this is important. And so therefore, we have to add it to the cost of the machinery. So we have now the total cost of the machinery amounting to 700 plus 430 plus 220 plus 100 plus 120 plus 40,000. We have 1,610,000. That is for illustration 3. Next, we have illustration 4. Question: what total amount should be capitalized as cost of the second machine? During the current year, Christian Company purchased a second-hand machine at a price of 5 million. A cash payment of 1 million was made, and a 2-year non-interest bearing note was issued for the balance of 4 million pesos. Recent transactions involving similar machine indicate that the used machine has a second-hand market value of 4,500,000. A new machine would cost 6,500,000. The following costs were incurred during the year. First, let us first read, okay? First, cost of removing old machine that is replaced. Next, cash proceeds from the sale of the old machine replaced. General overhaul and repairs to reconditioned machine prior to use. Cost of spare parts to cover breakdowns. Cost of installation. Cost of testing machine prior to use. Cost of hauling the machine from vendor to company premises. Cost of repairing damage to machine caused when the machine was dropped during installation. Repairs incurred during the first year of operation. And safety device added to the machine. So what costs are we gonna add? Okay? Now take note class, for the cost of the machine, if you remember, that the best price, or the price that is to be recorded when we acquire the PPE, is at its fair value. Take note of that, that is at its fair value. Now, what are the examples of fair value? We have the example cash price equivalent. Okay? Now, in this case, this is a second-hand machine, and as you can see, there is a given second-hand market value of 4,500,000. There is a price of 5 million, but take note that this is the purchase price. But since there is a given second-hand market value, and the um, more reliable measurement is the fair value, or the market value, in other words, then of course we have to use the second hand market value. Why again? Because it is stated in the standard that we have to record the property, plant, and equipment at its fair value. Now, the second-hand market value that is given here is more reliable than the purchase price that we the purchase price that is given in the first sentence. Take note that this purchase price could be higher because this was purchased on credit, right? As you can see, there's a cash payment of 1 million and there's a note of 4 million pesos. And take note that is non-interest bearing. So therefore, when we say non-interest bearing, it only means that the interest was already included in the 4 million. So 4 million plus 1 million, that is 5 million. So if the interest is already included in the 4 million, then it is also included in the 5 million. Now, using the 5 million as our basis of measurement of the machinery will not give us the exact fair value because there is an interest within that 5 million. That is why we have to use the second-hand market value of 4,500,000. And for this one, a new machine would cost 6,500,000. That is relevant to the problem. Okay? Now let's proceed. First, cost of removing old machine that is replaced. Now take note class that this is not related to the new machine but rather to the old machine. And so therefore, we have to expense this one immediately. Next, cash proceeds from the sale of the old machine replaced. Okay, now again, this is already related to the old machine. Okay, this is part of our um, cash proceeds, and the sale means a deduction of the old machine to our financial statements, and so therefore the new machine is not related to this transaction. Next, we have general overhaul and repairs to recondition the machine prior to use. So take note that we have to repair or recondition the machine since it is a second-hand market value prior to use. So it is for it to prepare for its intended use. So therefore, since it is necessary for it to work effectively, then we have to add the general overhaul of 220,000. Next, cost of spare parts to cover breakdowns. So, breakdowns are already the ineffectiveness of the machine. And so therefore, that is already a loss on our part. Okay? So breakdowns are not necessary to prepare the machine. Okay, the spare parts that is used here are not necessary to prepare the machine for its intended use because it is to cover breakdown. So this means that the machine was already used. Okay? Because there is already a breakdown. Now, since this is already a loss on our part, then this must not be added in the machinery account. Next, we have the cost of installation. So, of course, as we all know, we must add the cost of installation, that is 180,000. Next, cost of testing the machine prior to use. Of course, cost of testing is included. Okay, now next, cost of hauling the machine from vendor to company premises. So what do you mean by this? That is to bring the machine to the company premises. Okay, so that is 40,000 pesos. That is to bring the machine to the company premises. Cost of repairing damage to machine caused when the machine was dropped during installation. Now take note class that this is already the negligence of the worker or the management who is assigned to the installation of the machine. So this damage is not necessary to the to prepare the machine to its intended use, but rather a part of the negligence of the worker. So therefore, we must expense this immediately. Okay? That is a cost of negligence. Take note of what I've told you, that when it is due to the negligence of either the management or the worker, then it must not be buried to the machinery account. Because class, if we are to put this one in the machinery account, then it will be hidden. Because instead of putting the account title repairs for damages, the account title will now be machinery if you are to add it. Now, treating it as an addition to the machinery account will just bury the negligence, or will just hide the negligence of the worker. So, we must expense it immediately, okay, so that it will also be specified that there is such a there is such a negligence that happened during the installation of the machine. Now, next we have repairs incurred during the first year of operation. So just like the cost of repairing during installation, so of course the repairs incurred during the first year of operation is already expense. Why? Because during the first year of operation, you are already using the machine, right? So this means that it is not part of the initial cost of the machine already, because you're already using the machine, and the repairs will now become part of the expense. And lastly, we have safety device added to the machine. So of course, this is part of the machine that is used for it to work effectively, for it to be safe from any, let's say, water droplets, from any dusts or something. Okay, so this is a safety device that is added to the machine, and it is necessary for the machine. So we must add the amount 300,000. So for this machinery, we have a total cost of 5,390,000. Okay? And lastly, we have illustration 5. For illustration 5, the question is, what is the initial cost of the new machine? Carla Company acquired a new processing machine. Of course, we have the invoice cost, and that is added to the machinery of 1,600,000. We have the cost of transportation, of course, that is being added. Cost of transportation amounting to 50,000. And then, of course, the cost of installation, that is again 50,000. Now, the terms of the acquisition include a 3% discount if payment is made in 10 days. The entity's chief engineer spent two-thirds of his time during the trial run of the new machine. The monthly salary is 60,000. Now, let's go first with the first sentence. The terms of the acquisition include a 3% discount if payment is made in 10 days. Now, take note of this class, that as you can see, um there's no information as to when did the entity pay the machine. Now, take note that whether the entity paid the machine within the 10-day period or beyond the 10-day period, we are still to deduct the cash discount. Okay? Regardless of when paid, we must deduct the cash discount. Now, if ever the cash discount was not actually availed, then it will be presented as a purchase discount lost. Okay? And, of course, we have to deduct it as a cash discount in our machinery. Okay? So, that is 3%. So, we have 1,600,000 as the invoice price multiplied by 3%. And that is 48,000 pesos. Now, of course, class, it must be negative because it is a cash discount. Then we have the entity's chief engineer spent two-thirds of his time during the trial run of the new machine. The monthly salary is 60,000 pesos. So take note, class, that the chief engineer is necessary for the trial run of the machine. And the trial run is necessary to prepare the machine. So therefore, we must include the salary of the chief engineer. But take note that the 60,000 salary is already the monthly salary. Now, accordingly, the engineer only spent two-thirds of his time in the trial run. So therefore, we also have to allocate the 60,000 monthly salary. Now, for this situation, we have 60,000 multiplied by two-thirds, so 40,000 will be included in the machinery account. Now, how about the remaining 20,000? The salary of the engineer is 60. The 40,000 is to be added to the machinery, while the remaining 20,000 will serve as a salary expense under our expenses. Alright? Now next, the entity requested an allowance from the supplier because the machine proved to be of less than standard performance capability. The supplier granted a cash allowance of 100,000 pesos. So of course, this is just like a discount to us, okay? So there is a cash allowance because of the performance capability of the machine, which is less than standard. So of course, we saved for this one, and so we have to deduct it from the cost of machinery. Next, the cost of removing the old machine before the new machine was installed amounted to 10,000 pesos. Now again, cost of removing the old machine, it is related to the old machine, so therefore it will not be added to the new machine, but rather it is expensed immediately. And then the last one, we have the operator of the old machine who was laid off due to the acquisition of the new machine was paid a gratuity of 30,000 pesos. Now again, this is not related to the new machine because this is a gratuity that is paid to that personnel who is assigned to the old machine. So therefore, it must be expensed immediately under the salary expenses. So these are the only costs that is to be chargeable to the machine. So let us compute for the total. The total cost is 1,600,000 plus 50 plus 50 minus 48 plus 40 and then minus 100, that is 1,592,000. Okay, so that is how we compute the machine. Now, take note of the concepts. Okay, take note of the reasons. Why did we add? Why did we deduct? Or why did we ignore some of the items of the machinery? Okay, so I guess that is all for the discussion of machinery. Hopefully that um, you are going to practice what I presented here. Just have a screenshot and then practice answering without looking at the solution. Also, practice answering the practice problems that I am going to give you about land building and machinery. So that would be all for this video. Thank you for listening and have a good day. Goodbye.